I spent over 500 hours playing the worst football manager ever. And the crazy thing is, I'm an American who knows nothing about football. Was it a waste, or did I somehow turn into a fan? There are a lot of questions that we have to answer here, but I think the biggest ones are, first, why is Football Manager 26 considered to be the worst football manager ever? Second, how did an American who grew up knowing nothing about football and whose interests revolve mostly around anime, gaming, and horse girls end up putting 500 hours into the worst football manager ever? And what was I even doing for 500 hours? Well, let's get to that first question on why this is the worst football manager. Now, you might think such a statement could be controversial, but no, FM26 is widely considered to be the worst football manager ever. I mean, the Steam reviews are scathing, with mostly negative reviews and comments like, "This is genuinely one of the worst games I've ever played. The UI is awful, and the match engine doesn't make sense. Do not waste your money." So yeah, that guy clearly just does not like the game. Play the game for a short while, and I have to say that it's average at best. Previous titles are superior, mainly due to their visual simplicity. Pushing the game to be more console-friendly is not a bad step, but it made it very unpleasant and hard to navigate. Hope the peeps at Sega will listen to the community. I think it's Sports Interactive, but the Sega's publisher, and deliver this time a finished game. For now, if you want prime FM experience, please get or stay in FM24, which is funny and ironic because you can't even buy FM24 anymore. But this review, it's not even that harsh. But I feel like that's how you know it comes from a very genuine sense of disappointment. But then again, he did spend 2,000 hours, so I'd say he got his money's worth. Title: 25 years of loyalty gone. FM26 is a UI nightmare and a beta product in disguise. And the rest is just very long. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that this game rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. As you might be aware, Football Manager is a yearly series, and this time the devs fumbled. Get it? Because like, it's football then. But notice which game he referred to as the old one, FM24. FM25 doesn't exist. FM used to have its own tech and game engines, but they were becoming increasingly outdated. Football Manager itself, if you count its predecessor, is a series that is 34 years old. That's like older than me. And FM25 was supposed to be the great technical reset. They were going to get a new graphics engine, overhaul the user interface, and rebuild the entire infrastructure to create the best football manager ever. Not just for this year, but for the next 20 years. And for such an old and long-standing series, to say this change was massive would be an understatement. But that didn't happen. Instead, FM25 was delayed twice until it got canceled. The devs said that it wasn't good enough, and so effectively put the changes that they would have put in FM25 into development towards FM26. And so reasonably, FM26 had a lot of expectations going in. FM26 would have to justify not just the huge decision to rebuild everything, but for the 2 years FM fans would wait for a new football manager. And at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that they failed. For the first time, the PC and console versions were being built around a shared core UI system, the tile and card system. This new shared system was intended to make FM more accessible and consistent across PC and consoles, but for a lot of players, it came at the cost of the UI that FM fans clearly loved. I mean, a lot of fans bought the new Football Manager, some every year, some every few years. The fans were very much happy with how the UI looked and in equal parts horribly disappointed with how the new UI turned out. The new UI was meant to reduce clicks and make information easier to find, but many players claimed the exact opposite. It wasn't just the UI too. FM26 released with massive bugs, huge performance issues, and for a time, the game kept constantly crashing. Personally, as someone whose entry into the series is FM26, I was pretty disappointed with the lack of match analysis features that other games before had. Now, that's not to say it was all bad. FM26 clearly had a lot of cool and genuinely new additions going for it. In spite of all the massive criticisms for the game, many players genuinely appreciated the new graphics engine. The new tactics system is also really cool, allows the players to be more dynamic, taking on different roles and positions for when the team was in possession versus out of possession. And finally, they added women's football, which turns out is a huge and fresh addition to an already massive game. If it wasn't very obvious, I still find the game to be very fun, and a lot of players who managed to stick with the game said that it got a lot better after receiving receiving updates. Better, but not what it should have been. All in all, FM26 will go down in history as a huge mess and a big disappointment to all of its fans. Which brings us to the bigger question: why would I spend 500 hours in it? If you were to guess why I actually got into FM, you might guess with something like World Cup hype, or maybe I have a background in sports, and just to get out of the way, it was none of those things. The real reason is actually really strange. Football Manager is a massive series with an even larger audience. Despite FM26 being the worst football manager to ever exist, it still peaks over 40,000 concurrent players on Steam, and FM24, a game that you can't even buy on Steam anymore, peaks at about 19,000 concurrent players every day. It's not even counting console players, people who play on Epic Game Store or on the Xbox Game Pass or whatever. Yet despite Football Manager's massive pull, I firmly believe that I look like the least likely person to ever get into it. Think about it. For one, I'm an American. The football I grew up with was one of the leathery pigskin variety, where you hardly kick the ball and you risk lifelong concussions. As strange as it may sound to anyone outside of America, football, or soccer as it's known here, has very little presence, at least when you compare it to American football. American football is roughly 4 times more popular than either baseball or basketball, and baseball and basketball individually are both about twice as more popular than soccer. It's just not nearly as big of a part of our culture. And then you have to realize that these stats just mainly talk about normal people. And what I mean by that is, I have absolutely zero interest in sports. I never had an interest in sports. In fact, if a ball were to approach my face, my first instinct is literally to flinch. Because when I was a toddler, my dad had this great idea to surprise me with a game of catch this 30-mile-per-hour snowball, and it pelted me straight in the face. Specifically, my eye, and I cried. The last time I played baseball was back in high school, where I accidentally let go of the bat and it flung into another boy's face. And that was it. I was done. I retired from the world of sports forever. I never got into watching it either. My interest for practically my entire life revolved around 2 things: gaming and anime. And so I'm an absolute nerd. And the thing is, I'm just getting started. I mean, I've recently started binge watching 40k videos, and I've recently picked up Blood Bowl. And that's not just me going off into a tangent, by the way. Blood Bowl has surprisingly a lot to do with why I got into football and Football Manager. Blood Bowl and Uma Musume. Let's start with the second one. Uma Musume is something my current audience is very familiar with. But on the off chance this somehow breaks the algorithm and reaches a new group of people, we're gonna do our best to very quickly explain it. Uma Musume takes the real history of Japanese horse racing, all of its rivalries, tragedies, and legendary careers, and reimagines these stories and racehorses of legend and turns them into anime girls. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it actually treats the sport with so much care, so much respect, that it actually becomes a gateway for a lot of people into real Japanese horse racing, including me. Like, I'm following up with it. It's really fun. And really, if you're a fan of sports anime, like let's say Blue Lock or Haikyuu, I would actually highly suggest you give Cinderella Grey a try. I promise you, you will not regret it. So there we have it. Sports is now very fun and interesting because we put anime girls in it. But it's not only that, the gameplay is actually very interesting, and it has some links to Football Manager as well. You see, in the game of Uma Musume, you don't actually control the horse girl who's doing the races and having the career and living out the legendary racehorse life. You actually play as their trainer, you play as their coach, and you assign them training, and the fruits of your decisions is manifest into her, but she's the one actually racing and doing the stuff. But now we're about to get really obscure, because now we're going to be talking about Blood Bowl. You see, I happened to hop into a stream completely at random, and they were playing Blood Bowl on Steam, and it actually looked like a lot of fun and was interesting. Blood Bowl is fantasy American football, but like literally, where orcs win by breaking the faces of the opposing team, and trolls can throw goblins carrying the ball into the end zone so that they can run in and score. It's tactical and competitive, but ultimately your fate is controlled by dice. You can construct the perfect plan only to fall flat on your face, or you can throw the perfect miracle Hail Mary pass over the corpses of your fallen comrades and save the game. Also, the players persist between games, because it's not just one game. With Blood Bowl, it's like an entire league. Like, you have a history of games. The players gain experience, they learn skills, they suffer from lasting injuries, everything ranging from an itchy butt to just straight up death. And every match becomes another chapter in your team's story, which I think is pretty cool. And so, as crazy as it sounds, there is actually a surprising number of resounding links between Uma Musume Blood Bowl, and Football Manager. Uma Musume taught me that I enjoyed developing an athlete and watching her live out her career. Blood Bowl taught me that I actually really enjoy ball tactics and building a team and progressing them through a league. The thing is, Blood Bowl is a pretty complicated game. It's also tabletop, and so it's just not that popular. And so I wanted to try playing a different game. A game that had tactics that more people, perhaps even the entire world, cared about. Better yet, what if there was a game like Uma Musume where I didn't control the players directly, but instead I was responsible for their training and growth and could bear the fruits of my work secondhand. And so on one boring day, I am slightly embarrassed to confess that I dared to ask the one, the only ChatGPT. And to it, I asked, is there a game like that? And it responded, listen, you're a nerd and you know nothing about football, but why not try Football Manager? And that's how an addict was born. On paper, I was the least likely person to ever get into Football Manager. But if you really think about it, all of my interests pointed me in the exact direction necessary for me to get into Football Manager promptly so that it could ruin my life and consequently this channel. Which, in light of that, if you're enjoying the story so far, make sure you guys leave a like and sub and comment below if you would like to see more content like this or perhaps more videos about Blood Bowl. Please, is there anyone that likes Blood Bowl? And so now we get to finally answer the question, what was I doing for 500 hours? My journey began in the middle of June. I started with the demo of FM26 because at the time, I wasn't sure if I'd like the game given how little I knew or really cared about football. The demo is essentially identical to the full game, but your save is limited by in-game time. I think you can only play one season. And ever since then, I've saved every single milestone in my time playing the game. We're not gonna go through all of them. That is like another video entirely. But if you want me to do that, let me know in the comments below. But for now, let's just go through like the major points. Before I started my very first save, I had to figure out what team I would want to manage and what type of save I would do. There are so many different ways of playing Football Manager, but how I usually go about learning something completely foreign to me and something as massive as Football Manager is by giving myself training wheels. I decided to start with a club that had plenty of money and access to many resources. And so as a lover of anime, of course I would go straight to Japan and take over Kawasaki Frontale as Rednu Corsehawk. A somewhat well-known manager with a Continental B license basically means that I had some pretty decent skills with coaching, and also I had some reputation such that when I take over, the players don't instantly hate my guts. Because if you don't know, Kawasaki is one of the modern giants in J1 League football, the highest football tier in Japan. Unlike American sports, Japanese football is a pyramid. J1 is the top division, followed by J2 and J3. Finish near the top and you can earn promotion into the league above. Finish near the bottom and you're relegated, you go down one. And the best J1 clubs can qualify for the continental competition against Asia's elite. It's pretty similar to how football in European nations is run. And so going back to what I was saying before, Kawasaki Frontale are among the more dominant clubs in J1 football, having won the league 4 times in 5 years. They were the perfect team to learn the ropes with to see if I could actually like this game. There is a lot to learn with Football Manager, but I had 2 things to help me. For one, the YouTube guides were great and essential. I watched a lot of Zealand, and while his videos mostly covered the older games and FM26 changed a lot of things, a lot more things stayed the same and allowed me to get the gist of everything. This was a long and ongoing process though, and so in order to learn things at my own pace, I delegated most of the tasks to my AI staff and slowly gave myself more responsibilities as I became more and more familiar with the game. I started with a basic 4-2-3-1 lineup and tinkered it endlessly, and somehow it worked. Kawasaki Frontale dominated. They became champions of the league with 25 wins, 7 draws, and 6 losses. And just like that, I was sold. Tatsuya Ito was my star winger, driving the ball through the defenders on the right side, going on to make 11 goals and 12 assists. That is 23 goal contributions. He also racked up 8 Player of the Match awards and actually became the MVP for J1 football, which makes it all the more heartbreaking that this happened. You see, Ito only had a 1-year contract. What I didn't understand was that as soon as a player starts to approach the end of their deal at about the 6-month mark, other clubs can negotiate directly with that player to sign them for free for when that contract expires. Instead of having to pay Kawasaki or me a transfer fee to terminate Ito's contract and complete the transfer, they'd be getting him for free. Werder Bremen understood that. I unfortunately did not. Instead of keeping my MVP to dominate the J1 League for years to come, or at the very least getting paid his transfer value, which is between $6 and $9 million, which is no chump change for J1 League football, by the way, I inadvertently gave him away for free. And while that's good for Ito, I think going up from J1 to Bundesliga is a pretty good move. It absolutely sucked for me. But despite that, I had accomplished what I wanted. I had won the J1 League, and I learned the absolute basics of Football Manager. And following in the footsteps of Tatsuya Ito, it was time to move on and try something different. While winning my first league as a complete noob was something I totally did not expect, it was still with Kawasaki Frontale, who were already, again, one of Japan's more stronger clubs. I was confident I could continue my reign, and even without Ito, I'd be able to kind of dominate the J1 League for years or even decades to come. But honestly, where's the fun in that? I wanted something new. I wanted to try something different. I wanted to challenge myself and see just how far I could go. I wanted to play a journeyman save is quintessential Football Manager. You begin the save unemployed with a grand total of 0 skills. And I kid you not when I say the very first move that you make in a journeyman save is apply for a job. And so that's what I did. Much to my shock, there were very few clubs that were willing to go out on a limb and hire a jobless, skillless manager with 0 experience. But after months and months of searching, I finally found one willing to give me a shot. Tegevajaro Miyazaki. Their name, Tegevajaro, is a mixed word that combines tege, a Miyazaki word for awesome, with a Spanish word for cow and bird, hence the awesome cow and bird that is in their emblem. They're a J3 League club, and in my save, they were in the middle of their 2025 season with 17 games played, and they were getting very, very close to relegation at like 17th place or something like that. As a result, they fired their old manager and happened upon me. And if that weren't enough, there was just one problem. They were $1.4 million in debt, and they were bleeding $300,000 a month. Now, this might not sound that crazy to a lot of players, especially if you manage bigger league clubs where you have more money going around, just moving places. But Miyazaki is a J3 League club, and we were only making like $100,000 a month. But they were the only one. They were the only one willing to hire me. And so I took the job. I'm going to give you the short version because really my journeyman save accounts for pretty much 90% of my time in Football Manager, and I have every milestone stashed away. The full story could be its own video, but you'd have to let me know in the comments if you want to see that. But anyway, that first half season, I smashed it. Yep, I took Miyazaki from 18th place with 4 wins, 4 draws, and 9 losses to 8th place with 16 wins, 9 draws, and 13 losses. And in my first full season, ending in 2027, Tegevajaro Miyazaki became J3 champions, earning promotion to J2. And despite actively looking for other jobs while working for Miyazaki, Miyazaki did everything in their power to keep me around. They redid their training facilities when I asked them, they agreed to make a new stadium, but that got canceled unfortunately, and increased my transfer budget. And so I ended up sticking with them for 8 full seasons. But there was one moment that explains better than anything else why and where this game truly gripped me. I decided one random day, to look up the team. I found their website, tegevajaro.com, and on that site, I found their video, Rise to J2, and I watched it. And as I was watching the players walk onto the pitch, I heard these words escape my lips. I know these people. I mean, I don't know these people personally, but like, I know these people. These are real people, which I know it sounds so weird to say, but I mean, give me a break, okay? Every game I play is set in a completely fictional universe with completely fictional characters, or they just don't exist at this point in time. But in this game, the characters, they're real people. When I see the video, I see Yuma Matsumoto. That's like my tireless right wing back that I pretty much use all 8 seasons. Mahiro Ano, my reliable right winger. Kengo Kuroki, my iron wall of a center back that I use all the time. And Lee Chungwon, my young star goalkeeper that got away and dropped me like a hot bag of garbage after I got relegated once from J1 to J2. And as I watch tears streak across her face, the camera woman's shallow breaths holding back her tears as she witnessed their promotion, their real promotion from J3 to J2. I realized something. I had formed a super weird, but nonetheless powerful, one-sided parasocial relationship with these people. It was almost as if reality was imitating my save. I took Miyazaki from J3 to J2. I even took them from J2 to J1. And now the real club has done the exact same. Well, not the J2 to J1 thing, but you know, the J3 to J2. And that's amazing because now I know. I learned that Tekevajaro Miyazaki had placed 4th in J3 League just last year, qualifying for the playoffs for promotion. In the playoffs, they won 2-0, then smashed FC Osaka 4-0, and now they're playing in J2 for the very first time. Despite this being their first ever season in the J2 League and having one loss to the newly relegated Yokohama FC from J1, I think Miyazaki actually has a pretty good shot in J2. You see, from February to June, Japan ran the J2/J3 100-Year Vision League, a combined league designed to help Japan align its footballing schedule with Europe's. And in that combined league, Miyazaki dominated their group, winning 15 of their 18 matches and making it seem like they really belong in J2 football. So going back, right? Going back to the original question, right? Did I waste 500 hours in Football Manager? Honestly, no. FM26 is flawed, it's buggy, it's missing things that never should have disappeared, but it also introduced me to the world's most beloved sport. It made me care about clubs on the other side of the globe, and it produced one of the most immersive gaming stories that I've ever experienced. Football Manager isn't merely a football simulator. It's an absurdly powerful story generator, one where the characters, the clubs, the associations, all manage to persist and evolve after you close the game. And that is how I spent 500 hours playing the worst football manager ever. And that is why you're never getting another Uma Guide video from me ever again. Okay, thanks. Bye.